Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to OperaCon. My name is Jennifer Szeto. I'm a co-founder at Musique. I am joined here by my colleague from M3F, soprano Rachel Krehm, who is a dear friend and wears many hats. She happens also to be the general director of Opera 5. For those of you new to Musique, we are a music ensemble and nonprofit organization which is supporting the next generation of women opera creators in Canada. We run a biennial award called the Mécénat Musical Prix Toi Femme, which supports seed funding for new commissions by women composers and librettists, as well as workshops, performances of their pieces, and mentorship opportunities. So this is our first collaboration together between M3F and Opera 5. We are so thrilled and excited about this. Rachel, for those of us tuning in who are not aware of Opera 5, do you want to tell us a little bit about this company?
Sure. Opera 5 is a independent opera company based in Toronto. We're a member of Indie Opera TO. We've been around 8 seasons, and we have a history of digital projects such as Opera Cheats and Opera Cats, and also of live operatic performances in town. They range from world premieres to our favorite shows in the opera canon.
So the roots of OperaCon come from an educational initiative by Musique to bring the world of opera creation and conversations happening in the opera world to emerging artists and students at the post-secondary level. Because of the pandemic and everything that has happened in 2020, it was the perfect time for us to shift onto an online format and actually open up the discussion to more artists, more audience members, and more people in the opera community than ever before.
One of the things that we're all feeling right now, obviously, is isolation, and that idea of there used to be places where we would just naturally come together, whether it was formal or not, to discuss ideas, meet new people, make new connections in the industry.
We are hoping to take advantage of ways that we can drive connection and community, and we're really grateful to the Azrieli Foundation for supporting this initiative.
Tanse kia wao, Rebecca Cuddy Nisika-san, Miasin Iwapimtan. Hello, my wonderful friends. My name is Rebecca Cuddy, and it is so very good to see you. I've just introduced myself in my heritage language, which is Northern Michif. I am speaking to you from from Jojage, which is now known as Montreal, which is the traditional story of the Kanyankehaga, the Mohawk people. And it has been the site of much activity for many, many years, many centuries. And I'm just so honored to be coming and learning on this land, visiting. While I'm here, I'm taking the time to learn from the traditional caretakers of the land, the Kanyankehaga. I'm here learning their stories, learning their ways, and I'm so pleased that they're so generous sharing that knowledge with me.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Rebecca, you are an amazingly gifted mezzo-soprano. You wear many hats. You're a passionate Indigenous advocate, and you're also this year the Indigenous Artist in Residence at the National Theatre School. We first met working together at Highlands Opera Studio. It was such a pleasure to get to know you. I was just saying to someone last night how riveting and compelling and authentic your performance was. It really just blew us away. Rebecca, no. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of a little briefly about your path?
Yeah. So I'll start with my being Métis. That journey started around age 14. My family has been reclaiming our ancestry because as you likely know, many Indigenous people had to go into hiding due to residential school systems, 60 Scoop, etc. So my family began reclaiming around my age was 14. And since then, I've been really fascinated with my culture. And but I also just love to sing. And I've been singing since I was 8. So I went to the University of Western Ontario for my undergraduate degree. And there I started to try and find ways that my indigeneity could intersect with my my love of classical music. And I was a little stuck. Luckily, after I left and I went to the UK for my master's degree at the Royal Academy of Music, it seems that things just picked up, and I came back to a world of opera that was suddenly blooming with Indigenous activity, which was really wonderful. I met Ian Cuson there, and we had our first, not in the UK, in Toronto after I came back from my master's degree. And we had our first project together, which was 5 orchestral songs by Marilyn Dumont. And it was like answering a prayer that I had had for many, many years. And Ian, it was just so wonderful to see someone else like me, another Métis person who just loved opera and loved classical music so much. And from there, my journey has continued in opera, working a lot in contemporary music. I've premiered 6 Indigenous operas, what could be called Indigenous operas, with varying stories. And I just feel very, very lucky to be telling stories. I just think it's so important that Indigenous people tell our own stories, and that I could be in that position feels amazing, and it feels like work that just brings me a lot of joy but a lot of responsibility.
So Rebecca, can you talk to us a little bit about the resources that you compiled for the Association for Opera in Canada? It's really like quite an impressive document, and what purpose does it serve? Who is it for, and what can people find there?
Yeah, so I developed this resource over a few months this summer, and it is for everyone, especially industry leaders and opera companies who are looking to interact more with Indigenous communities. It is really a sort of first steps, beginner's guide. So I touch on what is a land acknowledgement, how do I write one, why is it necessary, what's the meaning of it, how do we create meaning in it, and how do we make it more artful and part of our arts practice as opera companies. And then I also touch on some definitions, the difference between treaty and unceded territory, and I also talk about engaging with Indigenous communities and artists and how to do that in a more meaningful and appropriate way. There's also some pronunciation tools and guides for saying the names of different nations, but I urge in the resource, and I'll urge here too, that really that work needs to be done with the Indigenous community that you are speaking about when you're doing a land acknowledgement. There's also some further reading and some resources that extend outside. So when you're done with the document, you can move on and keep learning. And if anyone has any questions, you can email me at rebecca@opera.ca, and I'd be happy to help you out as well.
Great. So for anyone who wants to find out more about Rebecca Cuddy's work at the AOC, the resources for land acknowledgement are available at opera.ca. And Rebecca, can you tell us a little bit about the project that you're involved in for OperaCon and your role in that?
Yes, so I'm doing the libretto workshop for Inertia, and I'm playing the role of Death, which seems very fitting.
One of the secrets to Opera McGill's success, if I might be so bold, is that we change every year, no matter what. One of the reasons for that is because we really are not a cookie cutter program. We're really trying to look at the students and the student body and what do they need. And every year the students are going to be different. We're going to have a different set of students. We're going to have, more sopranos, less sopranos. We're going to have a whole bunch of tenors or few tenors. And so the repertoire has to change to accommodate that, but the program also has to change. We're constantly listening to not just our students and what they're sort of bringing to the table. We're also listening to our alumni who are out there right now in the world as emerging artists, as young artists and as young leaders. And we're listening to them, and I'm kind of react to that. So when the pandemic happened, it wasn't it wasn't that hard to shift into what can we do, because we were going to do that anyway, and we were going to create a new plan anyway, but it just became how. It was less about the what than it was the how. And then when we got our mind kind of wrapped around the how, the what followed, and it followed really quickly. Luckily I have a great deal of friends in the business, and I started calling them back in March and April. One of the first people I called was Michael Morey, who runs Tapestry Opera, the artistic director there, and we were talking about what are the possibilities, and he had just finished rehearsing Rocking Horse Winter virtually, which was the show they were supposed to have been doing that got canceled because of the pandemic. And he's like, we went through this process, and with Kamna Gupta, and it was just this great process. And he told me about it. I'm like, well, could we do that with my students? And that's sort of how the digital opera projects were born, was through this phone conversation with Michael. And so, yeah, we went there, and then we also had to figure out how to bring hope to the students, because our students, they had gone into lockdown in March. The school semester got canceled. Aces and Galatea at Opera McGill got canceled. Their recitals got canceled. Everything was it was awful. Let's just think back to that moment. And so we wanted to bring hope. We wanted to say, we've got a plan. We're going to figure out how to do it, and we want you guys to come on board. So we announced way back in May. We did virtual auditions in June, and we had over 60 students audition for us, from first year, never been at McGill, bachelor's degree students, all the way up to returning master's students. And that was really exciting. We spent 5 days watching those virtual auditions, and people did them on their iPhones. They did them in like high tech with great sound systems. Other people, sang in their garages. Some people did it in their living room with costume changes. We even had one student who did the trio from Trouble in Tahiti, all 3 parts, and dubbed them over. It was just spectacular. I'm like, she's in. So yeah, we had a great deal of fun with that. And then we had to sit down, and we were trying to figure out how to cast into a season we didn't know what was. So we started setting aside students that we felt really needed roles. We set aside students who needed some sort of educational operatic experience. We set aside some students who were just beginners. And we came up with 4 different classes. We have a class on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, about 12 to 15 people in each class. We have 63 students. And we enlarged and expanded into, I think, what might be the largest opera program right now in North America. I'm not sure if anybody else is doing more opera. This season we are producing 20 different opera titles. And if you count them this way. So we're doing 6 full-length productions. We just last weekend did The Old Maid and the Thief on a radio opera, recorded just the audio of that. Then in January, we were doing Benjamin Britten's The Turn of the Screw. In February, we were doing Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. In March, we were doing Handel's Partenope, and the piece I'm really excited about, Joseph Boulogn's L'Amant Anonyme, which is one of the first, or probably the first, opera written by a composer of African descent, Joseph Boulogne, the Chevalier de Saint-Georges, in 1780. It's a fabulous piece that Stephen Hargraves is reconstructing a performance edition from the manuscript because we couldn't find one. So we're really excited about that. And then we're ending in April with Verdi's unknown comedy Un Giorno di Regno. And then, of course, we've got these digital opera projects with their 9 mini operas that are happening tonight, and we're really excited about that. And then what else? Oh, we're doing 3 one-act workshops with Musique, Femmes. Also, we're workshopping Luna Pearl Wolf's new opera, The Limit of the Sun, with the libretto by Andrea Stolowitz. And then we're also doing the first act complete of James Garner's new opera, The Much Ado About Nothing. So that's our expansion, and it's a great thing because most of these composers are living, And many of these composers are women. Many of the librettists are women, and we diversified our repertoire by expansion. And yet we're still doing Handel and Benjamin Britten and Menotti. So like we didn't have to give anything up to, take on something new, which seems to be a worry of people sometimes. But yeah, and I expanded the collaboration team. We have a dozen collaborators and coaches. Jennifer is one of them. And we're collaborating with Tapestry Opera, with Amplified Opera, with Opera 5. And we have coaches who are coaching from London, England, Berlin, Germany, and Toronto, Montreal, Alexandria, Ontario. That's where I am, and it's really quite exciting because it's helped to expand our students' kind of sphere.
And it sounds like, those sound to me like all great reasons why Opera McGill is the perfect host for the inaugural OperaCon. It's like when we were discussing programming, like all of the ideas and all of the collaborators that you had mentioned, like obviously they were the perfect people to lead discussions, talk about projects that are involving Opera McGill students or alumni or the community in some way. There's also a talk by Ariadne Lee and her colleague Nate Barnett. Ariadne is a current student at Opera McGill and a featured performer as part of the Digital Opera Projects, but little known fact, she also runs her own music festival in Sitka, Alaska.
Amazing. She's also Partenape in Partenape.
Really excited to hear from her. And then we also have kind of a wrap-up chat from Amplified Opera to discuss their time here at Opera McGill, and the title of that talk is Amp It Up, Decolonizing Opera from Within, to see how those conversations with the students really sparked the talking points and what they and we all can learn from that time. So I would say that that talk really comes from the work being done with the students here. We also have you had mentioned, Patrick, Limit of the Sun by newly Grammy nominated composer Luna Per-Wolf and her
so excited, woohoo!
Of course, and that features also Opera McGill artists as readers. And Patrick, you're going to be leading that libretto workshop as well, and that's super exciting. Great that we can have.
Yeah, we've been working on this libretto since I think the second day of the semester. So we cast that into the student body as well, and met with Andrea and Luna. Read through a couple scenes. Then Andrea, the librettist, took it away, and through the next month or so, wrote some more scenes. And so yeah, this weekend we're going to read through it and talk about it, which is something that never happens. Never. Sometimes students are lucky enough to get into a workshop of a new piece. It's typically already done. And the composer wants to hear how it sounds with live singers. This is a whole new thing, to get on the very beginning of a libretto before any music has happened. And that's really, I'm very excited for that. I think new works and working on new pieces with living composers and living librettists is essential to the training of a young opera singer or a young classical musician on any level, because it teaches you that the score is a living, breathing thing. It's not this piece of sculpture on a shelf that has to, be polished and revered. Like it breathes, it changes, and they learn to begin to communicate and collaborate with a living composer, so that then later the next step is to try to figure out how to collaborate with a composer who's no longer living, or a composer that's not around you. How do you get into that score and think like the composer, and why are those notes there? And that is an experience that is so important. And I wish I had that when I was younger. It took a long while before I got into a room with a living composer, and it was sort of like, who are these creatures? And you were sort of there to try to just give them their score the way they wanted it, and they weren't quite interested in an exchange. But now I think, well, particularly a composer like Luna, who has, she's been writing a lot of opera recently. She's all about collaboration.
We are exploring three major themes. When we were thinking about programming for OperaCon, we were talking about unique collaborations and interdisciplinary creation. We were talking about technology and its role in the arts. We're featuring a really cool talk by a small company out in Vancouver named Renaissance. They did this opera in VR project called Orpheus Vr, which is going to be spectacular. It features Ottawa soprano Mireille Asselin and their general director Debbie Wong, and a couple of team members from their production team. But we also have an interesting focus on emerging leadership in the arts and entrepreneurship. Patrick, do you want to talk a little bit about our little private Dragon's Den? I know this is a closed session to the public, but I kind of want to talk about why Dragon's Den and how does it benefit the students that are taking part in this part of the OperaCon.
Some of the things that are happening in the classroom for Opera McGill are not really out there in the world. One of those components actually is Ari Umezawa, who's been doing. She's now part of Amplified Opera, but she's been doing these amazing workshops on innovation and sort of the process of innovation and how to. To be innovative, you have to have a process, and she's really walked them through that process this whole semester. But actually, back in May, when I was thinking about what might be important for the students as far as a skill to learn that they might need in the post-COVID world, I think it's a skill they need anyway, but it became very essential, I thought, which was to create their own opportunities and to become an entrepreneur for themselves. And we've had a number of students leave McGill and go off and start their own opera companies. And I'm looking at one right now. You started Musique, Femmes, and Aria, with Rachel Krehm and a few others all started Opera 5. And so I thought my students should not be forced, but my students should have the opportunity to try to figure out or to develop their own ideas for their own nonprofit arts organizations. So I thought, how can we do that? And is there a way of teaching that in addition to doing everything else we were doing, bringing somebody in to talk about how to create an opera company or what's entailed in it, and Rachel Krehm, was like, I can do that. And so she became our entrepreneurship mentor. She brought in a entertainment lawyer who talked through fiduciary responsibility and contracts and things like that. Rachel was talking about artistic vision and mission statements, and she's been actually working with the second year master's students to give them a blueprint so that when they leave here, if they wanted to, they could perhaps start a company. And this Dragon's Den that's going to be happening, which is a private session. A handful of those students are going to be presenting their ideas to a really cool panel of opera experts to tell us their ideas about what they think a new nonprofit arts organization or opera company should be. And I cannot wait to hear their ideas. I have inklings, but I've not heard the presentations and what it's going to be like. So it's really vital and important, and I look forward to the day where opera companies all across North America are being run by McGill alumni.
We're seeing artist-led visions lead the way, and this is just such an exciting thing for the future of our art form in Canada. So yeah, this is really cool.
It's really humbling, and it also makes me very proud that the students this year and in years past are so talented, and they have so many ideas and they have so many dreams. And so really about trying to bring the people together to help these emerging artists kind of realize those dreams and also shape the dreams, because sometimes they may not have a complete vision of kind of where they may be, and they may end up not singing on the stage. They may end up designing on the stage or administrating on that stage or conducting from the pit. We don't know really where they might end up. And I think it's important for young students and anybody who might be listening to think about opening yourself to possibilities. And I think weekends like this, where you can hear all these different possibilities, you know, you love opera, you love singing opera, but maybe you're also a writer. Maybe you should be writing some librettos. You know, who knows what you could be. And I'm very inspired by alumni, you know, like Michael Shannon, who is, you know, on an amazing vocal coach on the staff of Canadian Opera Company, music staff. He started out as a singer here at McGill, you know, on his bachelor's degree. And I remember when he sort of, you know, knocked on the door and was like, I'd really like to kind of play some opera. And I was like, oh, I hope you can play, you know. And then it was sort of like, well, wow, you can really. You know.
There.
Yeah.
World premiere of Hadrian, head coach, no big deal.
Yeah,
Michael.
exactly.
Full of surprises. Our students are full of surprises. It's a beautiful thing. Patrick, great words to get OperaCon on its feet. Thank you so much for having us. Thanks to Opera McGill, all of the students and staff and faculty members hard at work to what sounds like an amazing semester. Thank you for hosting us, and to everybody else. Join in the programming. There's lots to learn from, and we wish everyone a beautiful and safe weekend.
Join in.